So in today's video, I want to talk about a topic that I see discussed from time to time, and that is Qt Designer. So the main thing that I want to talk about today boils down to tools in general, not specifically just Qt Designer, although it is kind of my main topic for today, but it also kind of lends itself into other tools like IDEs. And the question today is Qt Designer good for a beginner? If you want to expand the question a little bit, or maybe a lot, as the case may be, you could say, is Qt Designer good to use at all? Now, if you're unfamiliar with Qt Designer, it's a tool that's provided by Qt that allows us to design interfaces in a drag and drop method for Qt widgets. Qt Quick and QML, you can use the designer within Qt Creator, and Qt Creator is a IDE that is provided by Qt. You can use it for C++ or Java, or not Java, but Python. I use PyCharm for my Python development, and I use Qt Designer for helping me design my interfaces, laying out my GUIs. Years ago, and how this all started with me was, the only time that I've hand-coded a GUI was over 20 years ago, and I'd say this is around 1998. I played around with Java Swing programming, if you're familiar with Java Swing, and it's a library that lets you do GUI development using Java. And in that particular case, I did hand code chunks of the interface because there were no tools at that time. And I put development up on the shelf and sort of moved into other development areas over the years, and I'd say about 4 or 5 years ago, I got into Python development out of necessity. And so I started looking at, okay, I'm getting into Python, I'm liking it. So are there any tools out there that will help me do GUI development in Python? And I found that there are several libraries. There's tkinter, WX Python, which is basically WX widgets, and then Qt. I was using PyQt at the time, which is provided by Riverbank Computing, and it's a wrapper around Qt. And now I use PySide that comes directly from the Qt company. When you download PySide or PyQt, either way, you get a copy of Qt Designer included with it. And when I started looking at tutorials, I was impressed with Qt Designer as a drag and drop interface for laying out your interfaces. I liked it quite a bit, and that's because in every other development environment, and this is well past college, I've had tools to help me get that particular job done. A lot of the tutorials that I was looking at, many of them were hand coding the interface, and I just said, I just don't want to do this. I don't want to hand code interfaces. Now, is there anything wrong with hand coding an interface? Well, technically no. It's not that I'm 100% against hand coding your interface. It's just not something that I want to do because I find it to be time consuming and tedious. I'm not a full-time developer. I have been a full-time developer, and I have not been a full-time developer. And in my current role, I'm actually more management now, so I am not doing coding on a day-to-day basis. So when I do have to code, there's one simple rule that I've always followed, which is I want to get this done. I don't want to get wrapped up in the what I like to call the bit twiddling aspects of coding. And so having a tool like Qt Designer allows me to lay out the interfaces visually, and then I can use the built-in compiler to change the UI files that are produced by Qt Designer, turn those into Python files, import them, and use them. And I've done several videos on this channel where I've shown how you do that. In fact, the first video I ever did was how to properly use the output from Qt Designer. My main tutorial on this channel, my big PySide Basics tutorial, it shows you how to use the files that come from Qt Designer. Have I ever hand-coded an interface for PySide, Qt for Python? No, I have never hand-coded an interface for that once. And the reason being is that's not the area that I want to focus on. Now, I'm not going to tell you that hand-coding an interface is bad. It's not bad. There's nothing wrong if that's the way that you want to do it. Plenty of people out there do that. But my perspective has always been, I want to get my application working. I don't want to spend copious amounts of time bit twiddling to get something to work. And I find if you hand code the interface, it tends to be a little bit tedious. You have to code it, you have to test it, code it, test it. There's no way to visually see what that interface is going to look like until you actually run the program. So you have to go through all these iterations of testing, when if I lay it out in Qt Designer, I can see what it's going to look like right on the screen. And I can save it, compile it into Python, import it, and I know that's what I'm going to get. I find that making changes to interfaces in Qt Designer just as simple. If, again, this is if you do things the correct way, which unfortunately many tutorials here, and you can, if you're not careful, you can get into something called tutorial hell, where you never get out of the tutorials phase because there's just so many of them out there, and unfortunately many of them are just not correct. So I have seen people say things in their YouTube videos, and I've read articles online. Qt has sort of been a big hobby for me over the last 4 years, and because of that I do try and read articles I find on Qt. I try to watch the tutorial videos, not because I need the practice myself, but because once in a while you do find a better way to do things. But most of the time what I find is horrible information out there. One person even said in their video, and I'll give them credit, they do have the how you use Qt Designer files correctly. In fact, they're very adamant about it. They say, listen, this is how this tool was designed to be used, and they're right. The thing is, they spent a lot of time in the video trying to discourage you from using Qt Designer. And the main argument they're making is, well, by the time you're done with this, you might as well just code it. Well, I don't agree with that. I think that a lot of people say that you should do things the hard way first and then learn how to do them correctly. I don't agree with that mentality at all. I think you should learn your tool set. And I find that Qt Designer helps me get to where I want to be faster than if I just sat there and hand coded everything. If you want to expand this discussion a little bit, think about it from the IDE perspective. There's a lot of folks out there, and I don't know why this is the case, I've never understood it, but they reject tool sets like IDEs, designers, any of that type of stuff. They look at that as being a crutch. You could call them purists, you could even call them Luddites, believe it or not. It's kind of odd when you think of a Luddite and technology, but there's some people out there that I look at them and I think they're acting like a programming Luddite. They're saying, well, If you're using these fancy IDEs and you're using these designing tools, I mean, look at Embarcado. Embarcado makes Delphi, and they have a tool called RAD, which is Rapid Application Development. The entire tool set is geared towards making apps. And people will say that these are crutches and that you shouldn't be using them and that you're not a peer programmer, if you're not doing things the hard way. And it's funny, I just saw a post on Facebook like a day or so ago where a guy was saying, yeah, I used to do a lot of game development and I did it in Notepad++. If you're not familiar with Notepad++, go out there and take a look at it. I have it. I use it from time to time. And the guy was saying, well, yeah, I used to do my development in it for like years. I used to work with a guy when I was still in college. I had a couple of side jobs during the summer. And one summer I was working for a small retail chain. They had about they had 5 stores. And this guy in the office was sitting there hand coding their website in a HTML editor called Coffee Cup. He didn't have any design tools. He was literally sitting there coding HTML. I thought, well, that's fine if that's what you want to do, but personally, I'd rather use a tool to get to where I want to be. And I find people that reject IDEs outright because I don't know if they think they've got this mentality stuck that they're using a crutch, if they think that the tool is somehow going to prevent them from becoming knowledgeable on what they're doing. But for me, I use PyCharm, which is one of the top IDEs for Python. In fact, PyCharm is written for Python. Visual Studio Code is another example. VS Code. Especially VS Code because it's free. You can just download it and use it. Many people out there use that IDE. Why would you want to give up the what they call the IntelliSense, which allows you to you get things like code completion and all that. And every time I see somebody out there rallying against these tools, I just say, why? I want to get things done. I don't want to turn myself into a programming snob where I'm sitting there saying that, well, you're not a real developer if you're not doing things the absolute hard way, even as a beginner. Okay? Get back to Qt Designer. Should a beginner use Qt Designer? In my personal opinion, absolutely. It helps you lay out the interface. It helps you get the interface done so you can move on to what I consider to be the more interesting parts of your project, which is the application logic. What is your application actually going to do? If you get into this whole, I guess you could call it purist mode, maybe, then what are you doing? You're having to focus on the bit twiddling aspects of doing your interface when you could have just used a tool to help you get that interface done, and you can move on to the more interesting part. This happens when you are a coder in a real-life IT shop. In the IT shops that I've worked in over the last 20 years, they want you to get stuff done. They don't want to sit there and listen to you talk about the amount of bit twiddling that you're going to have to do it. Your end user sure does not care how you get it done. All they want is it done. I've had projects where I've had to explain some of the certain technical aspects that we're going to have to go through. They don't care. All they care is that their application works and it has the functionality that they want. Once in a while they're worried about losing functionality. Let's say you're going to put an application on the web instead of what they have already. They're definitely concerned about lack of functionality. But for the most part, if you give them what they want and it functions, then they're fine. I don't want to spend my day bit twiddling. Okay, I just don't. I don't have time for it. I want to get something done. Now, what's the downside to doing it this way in a modern coding environment? Well, everything has a learning curve. Okay, Qt has a learning curve. And if you throw a bunch of tools on top of it, Python has a learning curve. Okay, your favorite IDE, your favorite integrated development environment, has a learning curve. You don't just sit down at an IDE and instantly start using it unless you're fairly familiar with other IDEs. Qt Designer, same type of thing. It has a learning curve. You're going to have to get used to doing it. It has quirks. And until you have familiarity with it and experience with it, that can be a little bit frustrating. So I get it. I do understand. Some people may say, well, I can just bring up Notepad++. I can write the code. I don't have to learn all these tools. I can focus on the application development. But you have to remember, these tools were not designed to make your life worse. They were designed that after you get through the learning curve and you know what you're doing, you can be a better developer. In the end, being a better developer is about getting things done. It's not always about running around with the most technical prowess that there is. The end user doesn't care. What they care is that they get the application that they want and that they get the functionality that they want. Okay, so that's kind of my rant for today. I've seen some articles where people are like, nah, you shouldn't be using these fancy tools, and things like Qt Designer are bad, blah blah blah. They're not. If you're a beginner to Qt, I would highly recommend that you go through the process of learning Qt Designer. It's not that hard to use, really. You're a fairly smart person already. I mean, if you're already a Python developer, well, you've already got one of the biggest things covered already, which is Python. So learning Qt is not going to be that hard for you. Yes, Qt does have a lot of object-oriented stuff in it. In fact, pretty much everything is object-oriented. So if you're not used to that, you do have to wrap your head around that. But I think the learning curve is worth it. I think that the skills that you gain from it are worth it. I think that learning how to use the tools, learning how to use the tools properly is worth it. But again, that's an exercise that you have to go through. No one can really push it into your head. You just have to buckle down and get the experience under your belt. I mean, I went through it when I started using Qt. I had a lot to learn. And at that particular time, Python wasn't a language I'd been coding in for years either. So I had to deal with the Pythonic isms of it on top of learning all these different tools. But you do it. And once you get over the hurdles, you'll find that you can be pretty productive when you do things in the correct way. So don't just instantly dismiss a tool because you see some tutorial on the internet or on YouTube where somebody says, you're just not a real developer if you're not blah blah blah. It's like the people who use Gentoo Linux or something like that and just insist that everybody else is just a noob and they're better than everybody else. You don't want to get into that elitism crap, and there's a lot of elitist programming stuff out there. Okay, so anyway, again, learn the tools. They're there to help you. You want to get things done. Yes, you do need to know what you're doing, and it does have a learning curve, but I think it's absolutely worth it in the end. Don't be afraid to dive headfirst into that stuff. Okay? Alright. I hope everybody has a good week, and as always, happy coding.